This is TV 10 and 55 Focus, a program dealing with issues affecting everyone on Long Island and the tri-state area. Now your host, Richard Rose.
Our paid canvas directors, Benjamin Kidd,
On Tuesday, Suffolk voters voted loudly, convincingly choosing Democrat Steve Bellone to be the new Suffolk County Executive over outgoing County Executive Steve Levy. In a strong margin of defeat for Republican challenger Angie Carpenter, Steve Bellone, after 10 years as Babylon Town Supervisor, is now prepared to take the reins in Suffolk County. Hi, I'm Richard Rose, and welcome to Focus. And we have the pleasure of having Steve Bellone as our guest today. Welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Rich. Thank you.
Also joining us, my co-host, Dr. Marty Cantor from the Long Island Center for Socioeconomic Policy. And Marty, why don't you start us off?
Well, Steve, congratulations. I remember
you.
when you first got into the business, so this is like a treat.
Black hair back then.
Oh, yeah, we all did. Yeah. We all did. So it's a real treat for you to see you as Suffolk County Executive.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk a second about the margin of victory.
Okay.
You know, clearly your 57-43 win wasn't all due to the fact you raised more money.
Yes.
What did you see out there? How did you connect with the voters? And how big a role do you think Republicans crossing the line to vote for you led to that margin of victory?
Well, I think we had a big victory, and it was very gratifying. I appreciate the voters of Suffolk County having the confidence in me. And clearly, we had a number of Republican voters cross over. And I think it's a reflection of our record in Babylon. We've never been about partisanship or ideological battles. It's about solving problems. And what I've found going across Suffolk County that most people just want elected officials who are going to work together and figure out how to move the ball forward. And neither party has a lock on great ideas for how you get things done. I've done some things in Babylon that people say, these sound like more Republican ideas, and I've obviously done a lot of things in Babylon that I think would reflect more Democratic ideas, but problems are really context-based, not ideological, and that's always been our approach in Babylon, and I think across Suffolk County we saw the results election night where we had a lot of crossover votes.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you won the vote in every part of the township.
We won every town in Suffolk County. We came close in Smithtown, 14 votes. I think Santa Claus might have put me over the top in Smithtown.
Well, Pat Vecchio voted 3 times.
Maybe.
So just Smithtown, you lost by a few votes.
We won by about 14 votes.
So then it was every
town in all 10 towns in Suffolk.
Yeah, talk about Islip Town for a moment. You carried Islip Town by about 3,000 votes, yet the Democrats were defeated. Every Democrat, including the current supervisor, he looks real close. What do you? How can you relate that to your victory? What did you do different that got you the plurality in Islip?
I'll tell you, it's hard to say because I think Phil Nolan has certainly done the right things governmentally in that town. He has streamlined the government there. He has, I think, made government work, made investments in the parks. He installed GPS to create some accountability, which we had done in Babylon earlier. I really don't know what exactly happened there, except to say that it must have been local issues that really dominated the race there.
Well, you won by about 14 points, I believe, which is considered convincing, just short of a landslide, but without a doubt, as you said, some Republicans had to have voted for you if you base it on registration. So do you consider that a mandate?
I do. I consider it a mandate. In this race, we focused on a positive message, and it was basically this, that we have created a model of government in Babylon that I think shows that government can work, it can be efficient, it can be effective, and we're going to take that to the county. And what we're going to do is we're going to streamline government, we're going to make it more efficient by putting accountability structures in like we've done in Babylon, we're going to work to cut the debt like we did in Babylon, and we're going to keep taxes low. And as a result of that, we're going to be able to grow our economy and start addressing the major regional challenges that we face. So I think that is a mandate for what we talked about during the campaign. Make government work. That's what people want to see.
And how are you going to use that mandate to deal with the budget? That's the big elephant in the room. The legislature did you a favor by giving it a 6-month budget. It allows you to come in and put your own fingerprints on how you'd like the county to look. What's your biggest challenge? I know not raising taxes, but what's your biggest budgetary issue that you're going to have to deal with in order to get a balanced budget?
Well, look, these problems that we have financially in the county did not happen overnight. It's the result of a lot of short-term thinking and short-term planning. And so we're not going to solve it overnight. But What we have to do is, we're not sure what's going to come out of the budget process yet, so I'm still looking to see exactly what we will be inheriting. We know it will be bad. There's about a $135 million gap in the budget right now. So I think, look, we're going to have to do a lot of different things. We're going to have to do some short-term, term things that we have to balance the budget. We're going to have to reform the capital plan, I think, so that we're reducing debt, but also investing in things that will help bring in revenue to the county. We have to reestablish a relationship with New York State. We've had all of these battles with the state of New York in the last 8 years, and I don't know if anyone has noticed, but we keep losing the battles, and it hurts taxpayers in this county. So we need to be able to work together with the state. They can provide a lot of mandate relief that I think can help over the short term. And finally, we have to grow the economy. The only way we're going to get out of this fiscal crisis is if we create opportunity and growth in Suffolk County.
So are you contrasting yourself with Steve Levy immediately there by saying that? Are you saying that Steve Levy's approach with state agencies turned them off, alienated them, cost Suffolk County money?
I don't think anyone would argue that Steve Levy and I are different people. There's no question about that.
So you'd have a different approach dealing with state agencies than he?
Absolutely. My approach to government is, look, we have all these different levels of government. We have obviously two parties. You need to work to bring people together. There are times when you have to take on fights and battles. We've done that in Babylon. But that should always be the last resort, because when you have those fights, you are taking resources away from actually getting things done. So I'm going to work to build bridges, establish relationships, and help in ways that I think will help address our financial problems in the county. The state can be very helpful to you, or it can be very harmful to you. And not strategically dealing with that relationship is a big mistake for taxpayers.
Well, one example that I'm aware of, I guess, and I don't know whether it's a personal thing or it was anything about what Steve Levy did or anybody in the county government there, but they're not allowing them to do certain things with prisoners, and that's costing the county about $500,000 a month, I believe. Explain that.
Yeah.
And could you do anything differently there, or is that just something the county's stuck with?
Well, no, I think it is possible. You have the Committee on Corrections that makes these decisions, and there are variances that are allowed based on...
Explain the problem.
Well, I think the problem is that you have, certain regulations that are in place that require the county to do certain things with prisoners, but the Committee on Corrections can provide variances that, even if it's on a short-term basis, that would allow the county to save millions of dollars over several years. So things like that, and there are 100 other things that could be done at the state level to provide some mandate relief, even in the short term, that will help the county deal with its fiscal problems. But if you don't have a relationship with the delegation, if you don't have a relationship with the governor, it's very difficult to move things forward.
We were kidding before the show that it's, sometimes certain jobs can be like the movie The Candidate. It's an old-time movie where the candidate finally wins, Robert Redford. In the end, he says, now what do we do?
Exactly.
Can you laugh at that, just thinking about that?
Well, yeah, I joked talking to my staff that now leaving Babylon Town Hall, I may look back and say this was the best job I ever had in my life, and I may do that very quickly. It is, look, we're dealing with a big mess in the county, and I'm going to be honest with people, it's not going to be solved overnight. But what I will tell you, that the approach we've had in Babylon, which is long-term planning, long-term thinking, we will start turning this around on day one, and we'll make progress every day. And I think within 2 or 3 years, you're going to see real progress happening on the financial front in the county.
Well, there certainly is a lot to talk about, and we're going to do that when we return with our guest, Steve Bellone, the new Suffolk County Executive come January. What's he going to do about the Foley Nursing Home? How's he going to keep property taxes down? What about the cop dispute between the Suffolk Sheriffs and the Suffolk Police about patrolling highways? We'll take up that and much more with my co-host, Dr. Marty Cantor, when we return.
TV 10 and 55 Focus now continues.
And welcome back. I'm Richard Rose here with our guest, incoming County Executive, Suffolk County Executive, Steve Bellone, Democrat, and my co-host, Dr. Martin Cantor, who has a question, Doctor.
We're going to talk about the police and the other groups in a moment. I was interested during the campaign. Both you and Angie Carpenter had said that some sort of school consolidation to reduce taxes, if it didn't impact the classroom, which is the right position. What can you do? Because county exec doesn't have control over the school taxes. But what can you do as county executive to put focus on the fact that there might be a better way to restructure the finances of schools? schools and lower property taxes, because lower school taxes will help you in the economy.
Yes.
So how would you address that or approach that?
Marty, no question about it. One of the major regional challenges that we face is the fact that our costs are too high, and property taxes are a big part of that. You know, in Babylon over 10 years, we've kept the rate of increase significantly below the property tax level, the cap that's in place now. The current budget they're talking about, they're not piercing the cap, and I would never support that. I think we need to figure out how we live within our means. But even with that, that's a small portion of your overall property tax bill, as you mentioned. Consolidation is a very difficult thing because it involves something that people consider very important to their family, which is their kids' education. And when you focus on something like that without having done the preparation, without having really gone across the county and educating people about other alternative forms of government, to just throw out consolidation and propose it, it would be dead on arrival. So what I will start to do as county executive, because I think this is very important that we start addressing this issue, is work with the business community, work with civic organizations and community organizations, teachers, and start talking about how can we structure our system of education in a way that would be different than what we have now, that would be modeled on other parts of the country that have successfully done this, and do it more cost effectively. Take the stigma out of it and let people start to understand and learn about other alternatives that work and that could make sense. We need that kind of preparation to have big change happen.
Well, and the school is, of course, a big portion of the bill. And a lot of
portion.
times you point out that the towns, you know, that's the smaller portion. A lot of times you were making that argument in Babylon, that it's a smaller portion of your property tax bill. But to talk about the property taxes now, both you and Angie Carpenter are saying that you didn't favor seeing property taxes go up.
Yep.
But the proposal that came out of the Suffolk legislature the other day, it doesn't raise the general fund tax, but it raises the police district tax. Isn't that an effective property tax increase?
Well, I think two important things. You mentioned one, it is a freeze on the general fund property tax. I have maintained throughout the campaign that's very important. You're not going to address the fiscal problems we have by increasing the general fund property tax. And importantly, they're not seeking to pierce the property tax cap. I have been a big supporter of the governor's 2% property tax cap. You know, a lot of jurisdictions around the state, there was an article in the New York Times recently, have been squawking about the fact that we can't stay within the 2% property tax. Counties around the state, towns, and my answer to that, quite simply, is you got to streamline your government. There is a ton of inefficiency and waste in government that if you actively manage your government and put accountability and structures in place, you'll be able to create savings and over time reduce the size of the government. That's what I intend to do in the county, and I would not support piercing the cap. We will stay within that property tax cap, which is meant to help protect taxpayers in the state.
You know, another big issue that that outgoing county executive Levy was talking about was the Foley Nursing Home.
Yeah.
And it's got so many different levels of problems. I mean, you've got the employees. You've got should the county really be in the health business and the caring of business? You've got people who in that nursing home who can't get into other places. It's a real big conundrum, if you will, on so many different levels, and you got to approach it. You have to deal with it somehow. What's your initial thinking about how to deal with that whole issue?
Well, I visited the nursing home facility, and I met with staff. I met with the patients there, and look, we have some of the most sick patients in our region in that facility, and we have an obligation to them. But we also have to look at protecting taxpayers. I believe that facility can be run much better than it is today, and what I've criticized the county for is the lack of an overall healthcare strategy. You know, we have clearly identified healthcare as a growth sector of our economy, just based on the demographics. You have tens of thousands of people in Suffolk County who have to travel into Nassau and into the city for critical healthcare services. All of these issues need to be addressed, and the county should be facilitating that discussion in terms of how we deliver health care at the most cost-effective, in the most cost-effective way for the county and for the state, quite frankly. So I think Foley should be part of that larger conversation and see how that can fit into our overall healthcare strategy.
Well, do you see any way to have a different role for the nursing home?
Yeah, I think yes, I definitely do. I think you could see a public-private partnership at the nursing home. The problem we've had in this county, I think, is a lot of looking at issues in a vacuum. The Foley Center, let's just look at the Foley Center, should it close, should it stay open? When you really need to be thinking about the larger issue of, what's our healthcare strategy in this county to take advantage of this growing sector of our economy, or to deal with the fact that so many patients have to leave our county to get health care services. So I'll take that more comprehensive approach, and we'll see how Foley fits into that.
Well, let's talk now about the big dispute that's gone on for a couple of years now between the Suffolk Sheriff's Department and the Suffolk Police Union, where outgoing County Executive Steve Levy turned to the sheriffs to patrol the LIE and the Sunrise Highway to save the county money because of the difference in pay and overtime issues. And at one point, the Suffolk Police even accusing the Sheriff's Union of being a scavenger union. So clearly creating bitterness between those two police agencies. You said the other day, you were quoted as saying you're going to handle it differently. How so?
Well, I think that is a sideshow issue. I've maintained that. I think it's a manufactured dispute, unfortunately, that was more about press releases than real substance. And it's a shame because at a time when you've had this prescription drug epidemic and heroin epidemic sweep across our county, I've had a healthcare expert in the region tell me it's the greatest healthcare crisis our kids have ever faced in this region. You've also had gangs take root in communities across the county. You can't grow your economy in downtowns and communities if you have gangs controlling. We've had this, while that's happened, we've had this manufactured dispute between law enforcement. And so I think the task that I have ahead now is to figure out how we repair that rift, bring law enforcement back together, and get it focused on what the mission should be, protecting our kids and our families in a way that will allow us to grow this economy.
All right, we're going to take a break here, but we're here with Steve Bellone. He's going to be your new Suffolk County Executive come January. We have a lot more we want to ask him. We'll be right back.
TV 10 and 55 Focus continues.
And welcome back. We're here with our guest, Steve Bellone, and my co-host, Dr. Cantor. And Steve, talk about the transition. You're still the Babylon Town Supervisor, right?
Yes.
And have you been in talks with the Levy administration?
Still have a day job.
How does that work? Who's going to take over once you take over the county executive position? And have you been already in discussions with Steve Levy about that?
Yes, we're putting the transition together now. It's very important. We got to hit the ground running come January 1st, and we actually are going to be starting the process of meeting with organizations and groups, forming policy that we're going to need to help turn the county around. And I have had a discussion with the county executive. We're going to be meeting sometime probably in the next week or so to discuss the issues that are happening in the government today. But at the same time, I've got to continue to manage Babylon's government. We have a lot of things going on, a lot of things happening in the town. Very important. We're working on the Wyandanch project, which I think is so significant, not only for this community, but for our region as a whole. It'll be the biggest transit-oriented development in the ground sometime next year with support from the governor through the Regional Economic Development Council. So I've got a lot on my plate still in the last 7 weeks in Babylon. I want to make sure we finish those things up and transition to a new government to deal with the issues in Suffolk.
We talked a little bit about the police union and the sheriffs. The AME, which is the union that represents the rest of the employees, supported your opponent, Angie Carpenter, in the race. Clearly, if you want to make some changes at Foley, you might have to get some work rule changes from the union to get more efficiencies. I'm not suggesting there's a rift between you and the AME, but what's your approach with AME and Sheriff Felice to sit down and say, can we work together to get some efficiencies?
I look forward to working with the AME. I look forward to working with the public employees in Suffolk County. A lot of people across the country have been saying that you can't negotiate with public employees. Public employees don't get things done, and they're just wrong about that. We have done amazing things in Babylon with our public employees. I think some extraordinary things for our town, and I'm looking forward to doing that in Suffolk County. What people can expect from me in Suffolk County, what employees can expect, is that we will be getting into the agencies of the government and we'll be figuring out ways to do things better and more efficiently. And everybody who's open to that is going to do great, and I look forward to working with them.
Are you going to pursue any of the approaches that Steve Levy has pursued, which is demanding that they make huge concessions, particularly when contributing to their health care? I believe he wanted as much as 25%, and without it saying that he'd lay off upwards of 700 people. Now, that legislative proposal the other day would only have 88 layoffs in comparison with the increase in the police precinct of 2% and some one-shots to avoid all the layoffs. But what about the aspect of their contract? How much do you expect them to contribute? Do you expect there to be increases in contributions? What's going to be your approach when dealing with them specifically?
Well, you have a number of contract bargaining units in the county, and most of them do not have contracts. It is the county executive's responsibility to negotiate those contracts. And I've been very successful in negotiating contracts in Babylon that protect taxpayers and are fair to employees as well. We negotiated contributions to health care from our public sector unions 7 years ago for new employees.
So you would expect that to be part of any deal that emerges?
Well, I think you have to do those things at the negotiating table. And again, I will have an entirely different approach in terms of how I bargain with unions. I don't believe you do that in the media. I don't believe that you get into war of words. You sit down at the bargaining table, you negotiate hard and in good faith. And in my experience, when you do that, you can, come up with agreements that work for taxpayers.
The legislature is going to be a major partner with you. When you compare Suffolk's legislature to the Nassau County legislature, whereas the Suffolk legislature might have been, they call it the Wild West, whereas Nassau, it's really almost politically centric. How do you, number one, your relationships with the individual legislators, and how far are you going to go to make them partners in your work?
Well, look, I believe in working together. We're not always going to agree on every issue, with no question about it. But this legislature has a history of bipartisanship, of working together to solve problems. And that's great. That is a good thing for our county. I will continue to promote that notion that we should be working across party lines to solve the problems that we face. So I think that's a great thing for our county, and I'm going to continue to support that.
Let's talk a little bit about your family right now. Your wife, Tracy, she works for Suffolk County
government,
government, right?
Yes,
does that predate, I think, even you guys? She had a career in government even before she met you?
Yeah, we actually met in government, and long before we were engaged or married, she's had a very successful career in government. She was appointed by the current county executive 8 years ago as the Deputy Parks Commissioner in Suffolk County. You
expect her to continue?
I'll tell you, she can, but I worry more about my marriage than, whether that makes sense or not, and we'll sort of discuss that at the kitchen table.
Very interesting pillow talk, Tracy. The grass is a little long, and this box. What's going on?
Does that work? I'm more worried about my marriage than.
And you have 2 children, right?
Yes.
Katie and Molly, if I'm correct.
And 3 and 2 years old.
And there were already little stories about them being so. You could see how excited they were. Their dad is now the new Suffolk County executive. So your family's really happy about this.
They're excited. They're excited when they see me on the TV or they see my name on a sign. Katie said, "Daddy, that's my name," and she's really excited.
How old is she?
She's 3 years old,
right.
And Molly's 2. The one thing she was disappointed about, because she's now coming to understand that I'm not going to be at Town Hall anymore, and I explained to her that she asked me if there was a park at the new place I'm going to, and I said, no, there's no playground there. So she was a little disappointed about that.
So it's Katie's mandate to you.
Put a park in.
That'll be no problem, right? You could get a new playground.
Well,
for
given
Katie
our fiscal issues, I don't know if that's going to happen right away.
All right. Well, we want to congratulate you.
Thank you.
You're becoming, and when do you actually start?
Be January 1st. We'll be taking office and hitting the ground running.
Just a little bit of time left. What happens in Babylon?
Well, there'll be a vacancy. Come January 1st, there'll be a vacancy. So if the town board can agree on a candidate, they can appoint a supervisor. And then at some point there would be an election. And if not, then it would be a special election a few months later.
All right. Well, congratulations
Thanks,
to incoming Suffolk County Executive Steve Bellone. Your new Suffolk County Executive come January 1st. I want to thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Rich.
Also want to thank my co-host, Dr. Marty Cantor from the Long Island Center for Socioeconomic Policy. And thank you for being there. I'm Richard Rose. Be sure to join us next week for yet another edition of Focus.